The story of the wise men who visited Jesus is shrouded in mystery and speculation. Were they kings, astronomers, sages, or something even more enigmatic? The Bible describes them as wise men from the East, but their exact origins and identities remain unknown. The word Magi in the original Greek text refers to wise men, possibly students of the stars, practitioners of sciences, and even, according to some, occult arts. Many believe that the Magi came from Persia, Babylon, or even India, places known for their astrology traditions and ancient wisdom. In addition, theories link these men to Zoroastrianism, a Persian religion that believed in celestial signs as divine manifestations. This connection suggests that magicians were guided not only by human knowledge but also by supernatural revelation. Why, then, did these important and influential men decide to undertake such a perilous journey? The appearance of a star, interpreted as a sign of the birth of a divine king, impelled them to leave their lands and face deserts and uncertainties. This decision reveals the depth of their conviction and the importance of the figure they sought. Magi symbolize the universal desire to find something greater than ourselves. They represent the Gentile peoples who, even though they did not belong to the Jewish tradition, recognized the birth of someone extraordinary. His story makes us reflect. What are we willing to leave behind to pursue something truly divine? The star that guided the Magi to Jesus is one of the greatest mysteries in the biblical narrative. It is called the Eastern Star, or Star of Bethlehem, and its origin has been debated for centuries. Was it a natural phenomenon, such as the alignment of planets, a supernova, or a comet? Or was it something purely supernatural, created by God to indicate the birth of the Savior? Some scientists suggest that the star could have been a rare alignment between Jupiter and Saturn, which occurred around the time of Jesus' birth. This event would have generated an intense glow in the sky, which could explain the perception of the mages. Others argue that it was a supernova, a stellar explosion so bright that it can be seen during the day. However, the description of the star in Matthew's Gospel suggests something beyond the ordinary. Not only did she shine in the sky, but she guided the Magi to a specific place. This detail defies astronomical explanations and points to a divine sign, similar to the pillar of fire that guided the people of Israel in the desert. It was as if the light had an intelligence of its own, leading the wise men directly to the baby Jesus. Regardless of its nature, the star symbolizes the light that guides those who pursue the truth. It represents Christ, the light of the world, who continues to shine and direct all who have eyes to see and hearts to follow. What about you? Which star has guided your way? Imagine the scenario: a group of noblemen, possibly rich and influential, decide to cross dangerous deserts following only the brightness of a star. This journey, fraught with risks and challenges, was not common for people of such status. So what drove them to search for an unknown boy in a faraway land? The Magi possessed something that many of us have lost: faith and conviction. They believed in the heavenly promise, even though they didn't understand all the details. They knew that this star was a sign of something extraordinary. They may have read ancient prophecies, such as Numbers 24:17, which mentions a star that would rise out of Jacob. Or perhaps they have received direct revelations in dreams and visions. Their journey was marked by extreme challenges. The climatic conditions of the desert, the risk of attacks by thieves, and the uncertainty of fate were constant obstacles. Still, the magicians forged ahead, driven by an inner certainty that they were about to witness something great. Your courage is an example of faith in action. This journey symbolizes the spiritual quest of all of us. We often face deserts in our lives, difficulties, doubts, and fears. But like the Magi, we are called to keep walking, even when the path is not clear. And in the end, we will find something much bigger than we imagine. When the wise men finally found Jesus, they brought with them 3 gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. At first glance, these may seem like just gestures of respect and adoration. However, each of these gifts carries a deep symbolism, revealing not only the identity of Jesus but also his mission. Gold was a gift fit for kings. It symbolizes the kingship of Jesus, the King of Kings, the one who would rule with justice and love. Even in his humility, born in a simple place, Jesus already carried the promise of an eternal reign, far beyond human crowns. Incense was used in sacred rituals for worship and symbolized divinity. By offering incense, the wise men recognized that this boy was not only an earthly king, but also the Son of God. His presence was something divine, something that transcended human understanding. Myrrh is the most intriguing gift. This resin was used to embalm bodies, symbolizing suffering and death. It foreshadowed Jesus' sacrifice on the cross, where he would lay down his life to redeem humanity. The Magi may not have fully understood the significance of this gift, but God, in his wisdom, was already revealing the plan of salvation. Upon learning of the birth of the King of the Jews, Herod, the ruler of the region, was troubled. His reaction was marked by fear, paranoia, and a relentless desire to protect his throne. He secretly summoned the magicians and pretended to be interested in worshipping the boy, when in fact he was plotting something much darker. Herod was known for his cruelty and distrust. He did not hesitate to eliminate any threat to his power, including members of his own family. The Magi's announcement of the birth of a new king was like a blow to their illegitimate authority, as he was not a direct descendant of David. The king tried to manipulate the mages, asking them to return with information about the boy. His plan was to eliminate Jesus before he could grow into a real threat. However, God, who is always one step ahead, intervened and warned the Magi in a dream not to return to Herod. The figure of Herod reminds us of the dangers of pride, greed, and the fear of losing control. While the Magi sought to worship the true king, Herod tried to destroy what he did not understand. This duality challenges us to reflect. Are we acting like the Magi, seeking the truth, or like Herod, fearful of what we cannot control? The journey of the magicians was not only physical, but also spiritual. They followed an unknown star for miles, with no maps, guides, or guarantees. What made them continue? The answer lies in the powerful combination of faith and courage. They had no concrete proof of what they would find, only an inner certainty that they were on the right path. This faith is surprising, considering that they were cultured men, probably accustomed to logical and scientific reasoning. Even so, they gave up their comfortable lives and risked everything in search of the promised king. Each day in the desert, braving the heat, water scarcity, and the dangers of caravans, was an act of trust. The courage of the magicians is also noteworthy. By entering Jerusalem and proclaiming that they were seeking the King of the Jews, they indirectly challenged Herod's power. It was not safe to question the authority of a paranoid and cruel ruler. Still, they remained steadfast, guided by the star and by a mission greater than themselves. This story challenges us to reflect. Do we have the faith and courage to follow the signs that God places on our path? Often, the greatest spiritual rewards come when we take bold steps, even without seeing what lies ahead. Just like wizards, we need to trust and move forward. The star that guided the Magi is one of the greatest mysteries in this narrative. It did not behave like an ordinary natural phenomenon. Instead of just shining in the sky, the star moved, pointing the way to Bethlehem and stopping right where Jesus was. How would this be possible? Many scholars suggest scientific explanations, such as the alignment of planets or the appearance of a comet. However, these hypotheses do not explain the precise and directed behavior of the star. Its specific movement defies the laws of astronomy, suggesting a supernatural intervention. This star can be compared to the pillar of fire that guided the Israelites in the wilderness during the Exodus. In both cases, God used a visible sign to guide those who sought his purpose. It was not just a star, but a divine message, a direct call from the Creator to the hearts of the Magi. Today, this star symbolizes something much greater, the light of Christ, which continues to guide those who are lost or seeking the truth. Just as the Magi followed the star, we too are called to follow God's light, even if the path seems unfamiliar or difficult. After a long and exhausting journey, the Magi finally arrived at their destination, Bethlehem, a small village unlikely for the birth of a king. Imagine the scene: noble men, dressed in exotic costumes, stopping in front of a simple house, a far cry from the palaces and the pomp expected for the arrival of a monarch. When they entered, they saw Mary with the baby Jesus. There were no thrones, guards, or riches, just a humble family in a modest place. Even so, the magicians did not hesitate. They fell down and worshipped the boy, recognizing in him something the world could not yet see, the King of Kings. That moment was a powerful revelation. While many in Israel were ignorant or unaware of the birth of the Messiah, these foreign men recognized him. His worship symbolized that Jesus came not only for the Jews, but for all mankind. He was the universal Savior, able to break down cultural and religious barriers. This meeting invites us to reflect. Do we also recognize Jesus in the midst of simplicity? We often seek God in great signs, but He reveals Himself in the most humble and unexpected things. Like the Magi, we need to be willing to see God's greatness where we least expect it. While the Magi worshipped Jesus elsewhere, Herod was hatching a dark plan. Realizing that he had been deceived by the Magi, the king, overcome with paranoia and anger, ordered the death of all the boys up to 2 years old in Bethlehem and its surroundings. This event became known as the Massacre of the Innocents. Herod's cruelty was not surprising to anyone who knew his story. He was a tyrannical ruler, who did not hesitate to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to his throne. His command, however, revealed more than his wickedness. It symbolized the struggle between the forces of darkness and the divine purpose. Despite the tragedy, God was one step ahead. He warned Joseph in a dream to flee with Mary and Jesus to Egypt. Thus, the family escaped Herod's fury, fulfilling another prophecy, "Out of Egypt I called my son," Hosea 11 verse 1. The Massacre of the Innocents reminds us that even in a world marked by pain and injustice, God's plans cannot be thwarted. Herod tried to prevent the birth of a king, but failed. What he didn't know is that Jesus didn't come to take his earthly throne, but to establish an eternal kingdom, far greater than he could have imagined. After finding Jesus, the wise men were warned in a dream not to return to Herod. The king had asked them to return with information about the boy, but God revealed his dark intentions. Obeying divine guidance, the Magi returned to their lands by another route. This decision was an act of obedience and courage. By disobeying Herod, the Magi put their lives at risk. Herod was known for his brutality, and challenging him could have fatal consequences. Even so, they chose to follow God's voice, and not man's. The return of the Magi by another path carries a deep symbolism. When we encounter Jesus, our lives change, and we can no longer follow the same path as before. Like the Magi, we are called to walk a new path, guided by the truth and the light of Christ. This part of the story teaches us that obeying God is not always easy or safe, but it is the right way. Magi inspire us to listen to and follow divine direction, even when it leads us to make difficult decisions. After all, true faith always requires action. The figure of Joseph is one of the most underestimated in the narrative of the birth of Jesus, but his role is fundamental. He was not only the Savior's earthly father but also a man of unwavering faith, willing to obey divine directions even when they were difficult or incomprehensible. When the wise men left, God sent an angel in a dream to Joseph, warning him to flee to Egypt with Mary and the baby Jesus. Imagine the weight of that responsibility, protecting the Son of God in the midst of cruel persecution. Jose did not question, he did not hesitate. He simply acted, trusting completely in the divine message. Joseph's decision to leave for Egypt was an act of courage and sacrifice. He left his home, his community, and his stability to face the unknown in a foreign land. As a father, he carried the weight of protecting his family in a hostile environment, traversing deserts, and overcoming challenges. Joseph teaches us a powerful lesson about obedience and trust. We are often called upon to make difficult decisions in times of uncertainty. Like Joseph, we need to have faith to follow God's plans, even when the path is unknown. His life is an example of how a simple act of obedience can be part of an eternal purpose. The flight into Egypt may seem like just a historical event, but it carries a deep symbolism in the biblical context. Egypt, which was once the land of slavery for the Israelites, now became the safe refuge for the Savior of the world. This turn of events shows how God can transform even the most unlikely places into instruments of protection and redemption. In the Old Testament, Egypt was synonymous with oppression and suffering. The people of Israel lived under pharaonic rule for centuries, until God delivered them through Moses. Now, the same land served as a shelter for Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, protecting them from Herod's wrath. This fulfills the prophecy of Hosea 11 verse 1, "Out of Egypt I called my son." The trip to Egypt also symbolizes the connection between the Old and New Testaments. Just as Israel was saved from Egypt, Jesus represents the ultimate deliverance of mankind, not just from physical slavery, but from spiritual slavery caused by sin. This part of the story teaches us that God is sovereign and can use any circumstance to accomplish His purposes. Places of pain can become places of healing, and moments of escape can become foundational chapters of the divine plan. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is an incomparable example of faith, humility, and strength. From the moment she received the message from the angel Gabriel, she accepted the mission to be the mother of the Savior with a willing and obedient heart. However, divine motherhood brought challenges and sacrifices that few could have imagined. As Mary fled to Egypt, she faced not only the physical hardships of the journey but also the emotional anguish of knowing that her son's life was in danger. She had to fully trust in divine providence and Joseph's role as the leader and protector of the family. His faith was the rock that sustained his journey. Mary not only cared for Jesus as an ordinary mother, but she also reflected on the promises made about him. Imagine what she felt when she saw wise men, foreigners, prostrate themselves before her son. She knew that this boy was special, but perhaps she still did not fully understand the price of his mission. Mary's motherhood teaches us about surrender and trust. She accepted her role in God's plan, even when she didn't understand all the details. His story is an invitation for us to trust God too, even in the most challenging and mysterious situations. The visit of the Magi was a symbolic and prophetic event that revealed a fundamental truth. Jesus came for all humanity, not just for the Jews. The Magi were Gentiles, foreigners who did not belong to the people of Israel, but they were the first to recognize and worship the Savior. This gesture marked the beginning of the universality of the gospel. Jesus did not come only for a specific group of people, but for all nations, tribes, and cultures. The recognition of the Magi anticipates the call for the whole world to receive the light of Christ. In addition, the journey of the magicians had a profound impact on the spiritual scene. They challenged the established system by seeking a king who was not in a palace but in a simple house. This courageous act resounded as an announcement. The true king does not belong to human power structures, but has come to bring about an eternal and heavenly kingdom. Magi inspire us to step out of our comfort zones and seek truth, regardless of cultural or religious barriers. They remind us that true faith has no boundaries and that everyone is invited to worship the King of Kings. The star that guided the Magi has disappeared from the sky, but its meaning remains alive today. It symbolizes the light of Christ, which continues to shine in the world and guide those who are willing to seek Him. Just as the Magi followed the star, we too are invited to follow the light that leads us to the Savior. This story teaches us about faith, courage, and obedience. The Mages abandoned their comfortable lives to undertake a difficult and dangerous journey, driven only by the promise of something greater. Today, we are challenged to do the same, to put aside our certainties and follow the signs that God places on our path. In addition, the visit of the Magi reminds us that Jesus is the universal King, accessible to all who seek Him with a sincere heart. No matter where we come from or who we are, His light is available to all. The question is, are we willing to follow it? Finally, this story is an invitation to reflect on the gifts we bring to the King. The Magi brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And us? Are we offering God our time, talent, and devotion? The light of Christ continues to shine, calling us to a life of purpose and worship. This story of the magicians, the star and the challenges faced is more than an account of the past. It is an invitation to reflect on faith, courage, and purpose in our own lives. And now I want to hear from you. What touched your heart the most on this journey? Was it symbolic gifts, the courage of the Magi, or Joseph's obedience? Write in the comments. If you like this video and want to continue exploring the so many stories and mysteries of the Bible, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Together, we can continue to discover what these stories have to teach us about faith, hope, and redemption. After all, the star that guided the Magi still shines today. We just need to follow the right light. See you in the next video. See you there.